You're intimidating and shouting down people you disagree with. You cannot censor and silence viewpoints you disagree with.
You are doing that. You are doing that. That is the exact thing you are doing. And by the way, under the First Amendment, you can shout down people. You are allowed to do that. The protesters there can do the things that you're saying they can't do, and you are doing the thing you're saying they're trying to do. I covered this for a while twice now. You know, as I'm sure you're all aware, there have been a wave of pro-Palestinian protests that have sparked across U.S. campuses, like pretty much everywhere. The most famous one, or the one that's getting the most attention right now, is Columbia University, with Yale assisting, where right now this is basically like the center of America's internal debate on anti-war student protesters and the Hawks. I mean, we're doing the Vietnam thing again, basically, right? There are people on campus, like students, it seems to be vastly supported by students, majority of them, who are protesting against the the continued support of and allegiance to and military aid towards Israel and what's going on with the Palestinian people. And this has like escalated to an enormous level here, okay? Like, it's difficult for me to even describe. Yeah, thank you for the link. Look at AOC's tweet here. Counter-terrorism NYPD forces are now arriving to Columbia campus. Like, the crackdown has been immense. An enormous number of sort of like left-wing, sorry, not left-wing, of right-wing, like, quote-unquote free speech culture war advocates and center moderate Zionists have been claiming that this is like a spread of anti-Semitism across campuses. Look, I feel like there's so much happening that it's almost impossible to cover all of it or to be like comprehensive when talking about the extent of what's going on here. You know, right now, this is basically like the biggest wave of campus protests in decades, at the very least since the Iraq War. And there are narratives that are spreading all about the place on how exactly this is going down or what it means or who's responsible for what. I want to be clear about all of this, okay? This is fully a pro-protester YouTube channel right here and community, I hope, okay? We need to be united on this, all right? The temptation for a bunch of people in my community, which I have seen from you guys, is to henpeck and to whine that the student protesters aren't being perfect in their rhetoric. I don't care for this at all. Like, if you want to take this attitude, you might as well be a reactionary, like that back during like the Black Lives Matter protests, okay? The crackdown that has been happening has been enormous, and it has been one of the most like mask-off, anti-free speech, like brutal, inhumane crackdowns that I have seen certainly since I began my channel. SDL, yeah, the literal state of Israel called these students terrorists. There are politicians and pundits calling them terrorists. The counterterrorism unit has arrived. Basically, no violence has taken place, despite the massive size of these protests and the tension at them. Like, no material harm has been done, but there has been a legitimate and institutional effort to frame what is going on at Columbia right now as terrorist activity, like actual capital T terrorism, you go to jail for it activity. There have been an insane number of figures online who, and just in the real world broadly, who have tried to frame these protests as anti-Semitic. They are not. There are individuals at these protests who may or may not say some anti-Semitic things. That is because protests are massive, and at any protest you can find anyone, sincerely or otherwise, acting as a kind of deterrent to the movement broadly. If you wanted to go back in time, you could find anyone at the Black Lives Matter protests. You know, you could look around and find one person with a counterproductive statement. You could go back to the civil rights movement and find exactly the same. I guarantee you could go back to any one of those MLK Jr. marches and find somebody there saying something optically damaging, you know? They want you to look away from the big picture, from the real actual material harm here, by the way, which is this crackdown, and have you focus on, oh, well, did you see this one like little video clip where somebody was being rude, or I feel threatened? one of the most embarrassing attempts at this that I've seen was this, like, I guess they deleted it because it says this post not available, where they've been trying to frame the Columbia protests as being dangerous for Jews, and they have this disgusting, wretched-looking woman with Jew painted on her shirt or whatever. She was screaming, "Dox me, dox me! I'm a Jew, I'm not afraid." And no one gave a... Nobody gave a... Nobody paid attention. It was super embarrassing. Can somebody find the original video, please? This is the deleted part of the video. God, please, yes, it's so bad.
I am not afraid. Look at my face. I am not afraid.
This goes on for a minute.
Put my face on camera. Show my face. Dox me. Dox me. Dox me.
And that's pretty much been like... That's the state of the current counter movement right now, which is people desperately trying to manufacture a narrative of anti-Semitism, of terrorism, of hatred, when in reality the vast majority of the people who are protesting just don't like the genocide going on in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. And, you know, generally. Yeah, exactly, Demon Mama, 100%. Yeah, the Stop Cop City protesters have been subject to, like, a massive crackdown and, you know, murder as well. But that's so localized that a lot of people don't really, like, notice it or talk about it. But we're talking about campuses all across the United States where there have been, like, literal, actual, institutional efforts to frame the people protesting as capital T terrorists, genuinely psychotic, you know. There's just no evidence to this narrative, and I feel insane having to repeat that over and over again because, like, there's so much media attention to it. I mean, let's just cover the CNN feed, like, for a second here. I remember when we looked at that Eric Adams video? Or sorry, that article where New York City Mayor Eric Adams, known dipshit, was saying, like, there were people attacking students just for being Jew, or like saying bad stuff about these students just for being Jewish, and the Jewish students that were being referred to were actually the counter-protesters waving around Israeli flags, you know? Yeah, this is like, even besides the issue that there is a genocide going on in Palestine, like even leaving aside the broader conflict, anyone who cares about First Amendment rights should be concerned about what's going on right now. Like, good Lord, it's been insane. There have been calls for Colombia's president to resign because people are saying that she has not been sufficiently, she has not cracked down sufficiently on the quote-unquote anti-Semitic protests. There have been, you know, like massive doxing efforts for the students who are present there, trying to get them blacklisted in the future. The clips of pro-Palestine people saying crazy sussy shit has mostly turned out to be PSL people trying to cause clashes. I would need evidence for that, but yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be, like, surprising to me. House Speaker Mike Johnson called on Columbia University President Nimat Shafiq to resign during a tense press conference Wednesday, during which the crowd repeatedly interrupted the speaker and at times loudly booed him. Over 100 Columbia students taking part in the week-long protest have been arrested by riot police and suspended by the university, where repeated reports of anti-Semitic incidents. Again, this is from Newsweek. Reports of anti-Semitic incidents. Like what? Like what? This is the narrative, and they're lying to you. The mainstream media, not just Newsweek, like across the board. We saw this from ABC. We saw this from CNN. Persistently misrepresenting what's been going on. Texas police cracking down on protesters at University of Texas, Austin.
So,
they do love getting their attention.
thank you all for being here today. We have several members of Congress here. And we're here today at one of America's preeminent academic institutions on a very important day and a very important time. Throughout history, Columbia students have contributed to the great storybook of America's life and thought. Visionary American leader. Today, Hamas issued an endorsement statement of the protesters on this campus. They called them the future leaders of America. It is detestable. All of this has to be said because the cherished traditions of this university are being overtaken right now by radical and extreme ideologies. They place a target on the backs of Jewish students in the United States and here on this campus. A growing number of students have chanted in support of terrorists. They have chased down Jewish students.
This is no different at all to what happened during the Vietnam War protests. Riot troopers, not police, have begun dispersing the student body in Texas. Yeah. Look at that. Look at this. Look at this. This is happening all over America right now. This is just the same. Like 100%, completely, unambiguously the same. A complete militarized crackdown on an anti-war protest.
Racial epithets. They have screamed at those who bear the Star of David. Enjoy your free speech. They've told Jewish students who wear the...
I like that because he's literally trying to take it away from them by designating the protesters as terrorists. You know, you are doing the thing the state does to remove somebody's free speech.
Star of David to leave the country, and shamefully some
the implied "while you can."
professors and faculty have joined the mobs. Things have gotten so out of control that the schools canceled in-person classes, and now they've come up with this hybrid model where they will discriminate against Jewish students. They are not allowed to come to class anymore for fear of their lives.
Where? What discrimination? What's happening? Where? What actual things are happening?
It's detestable. As Columbia has allowed these lawless agitators and radicals to take over, the virus of anti-Semitism is spread across other campuses. By some counts, as many as 200 universities have a similar form of protest right now. At Yale, a Jewish student was stabbed in the eye with a Palestinian flag and forced...
Oh yeah, I think I've seen the video of that.
Oh, you stop!
45 students were arrested. At NYU, pro-Hamas protesters were shouting from the river to the sea. Anti-Israel encampments are popping up at universities all across this country. The madness has to stop. The madness has to stop. We just left a meeting with students, Jewish students, who told us of the heinous acts of bigotry that they have experienced.
Notice how effortlessly this guy, and as sort of as a representative of all the people trying to crack down on the free speech of these students, are effortlessly blending together alleged acts of anti-Semitism with just broadly being anti-war or pro-Hamas or anti-Israeli. So freedom of speech means freedom of speech. You can be pro-Hamas. Whether or not you think that's good, you can be that. That's not terrorism. That's a political position. That's freedom of speech. Back during the Vietnam War protests, there absolutely were students who were like super pro Ho Chi Minh or whatever, okay? That's not like, there will always be. Whether or not you think that's good or bad, it is objectively an expression of the free speech of that students. To say that that amounts to material harm or material acts of terrorism is just a functionally an annulment of the First Amendment rights of these students. Just an acknowledgement that they were never there to begin with. That you can be in favor of the First Amendment, you can support the First Amendment up until, you know, there is a reasonable challenge to state power. And at that point, then, it stops being relevant.
Simply because of their faith. Their bravery is inspiring, much more inspiring than some of the activities we're seeing here. And they should never have to confront such hate on an American college campus. It's such a revered institution. Anti-Semitism has been growing in America, and it's clear why.
Keep in mind that this guy is in a political coalition that includes Nazis, and he's aware of that fact.
People have refused to condemn it, and some have even peddled it themselves. From university professors to public officials, people in positions of authority have denied the horrific facts of September 11, 2001, the attacks on the United States that happened right here in New York City, and they've attempted to excuse or to ignore the barbaric attack of Hamas in Israel on October 7th.
Even if this was true, by the way, even if everything that he was saying was true, and what are you, a politician, doing here? Free speech. Literally free speech. You're not some random, like, campus administrator. You're Mike Johnson. What the f are you doing down here? You're a representative of the federal government. You're not like you're not curtailing discourse on campus. This is literally just war on terror rhetoric. Yes, because it's the same. It's all the same. It's always the same. The language changes slightly, but at the end of the day, you know, student protests are permitted until they challenge state power. And if they challenge state power in any meaningful sense, if they grow to a point where they cannot be ignored, then you're anti-American. You're supporting the enemy. You know, your support of the enemy is tantamount to material. By the way, you supporting the enemy means you're doing terrorism or you're an enemy of the US. They did that in Vietnam too. They did that, every word of it, back in Vietnam. Oh, you don't think America should be in Vietnam? That's because you support Ho Chi Minh. You are an enemy. You support and support is functionally material support. Therefore, you are an enemy of the United States. Word for word.
2023, where Israeli women and children were savagely raped and murdered, and infants were cooked in ovens.
Did that get disproven or not? There were so many bullshit claims that were made. I don't remember what did or didn't get disproven. Yes, it did? Okay, was it the 40 beheading babies one that ended up being disproven? Oh, no, you're saying it was disproven? Oh, okay, gotcha. Whatever. October 7th, it's the first I'm hearing of this.
Crowds of radical activists have chanted death to America and on our own streets in this country.
Free speech.
And sub-public officials have refused to condemn them. Others have openly defended these acts on campus, and the harassing and the intimidation and the threatening of innocent Jewish students simply because of who they are. They've called that peaceful protest.
Not happening.
And some have even gone as far as calling for the state of Israel to be eliminated. These are words we expect from ayatollahs in Iran.
Oh, there we go. Yep. Challenging state power, you're an enemy of the United States. Let's invoke everything down the list, you know? Yep, Iran, 9/11, 9/11, 9/11.
Not American lawmakers and not American students.
9/11?
And unsurprisingly, it has given way to threats and violence in a generation of students who feel safe in their own classrooms, who don't feel safe in their own classrooms, or where they live or where they worship. Let me say this very simply. No American of any color or creed should ever have to live under those kinds of threats. That is not who we are in this country. Sadly, Columbia's administrators have chosen to let the threats, the fear, and the intimidation of the mob rule, to overtake American principles like free speech and the free exchange of ideas and the free exercise of religion.
He is literally advocating against these things.
They have co-opted First Amendment arguments to protect genocide and to elevate the voices.
Like, just so you all understand how insane this is one of the most powerful men in government, Speaker Johnson. This is one of the most powerful people in the country down here to attack anti-war student protesters as anti-American and supportive of terrorism. Yeah, third in line to the presidency. It would be this guy if Biden and Kamala Harris died. Sorry, second in line, right, because Biden's not first in line. Biden is, yeah, second line.
Of anti-Semitism. They have proven themselves to be incapable of achieving their basic responsibility, which is keeping students safe. We just can't allow this kind of hatred and anti-Semitism to flourish on our campuses, and it must be stopped in its tracks. Those who are perpetrating this violence should be arrested. And I am here today joining my colleagues and calling on President Shafiq to resign if she cannot immediately bring order to this chaos. As Speaker of the House, I am committing today that the Congress will not be silent as Jewish students are expected to run for their lives and stay home from their class.
It's basically been an October 7th every single day at Columbia State, at Columbia U, you know? That's so true.
Is hiding in fear. In the House of Representatives, we've already acted to address anti-Semitism on campuses. We have passed a number of statutes to address this matter, and we call upon the U.S. Senate to act upon our legislation. I have a couple of my colleagues here that I'd like to share a few words. I'll turn it over first to the chair of the House Education and Workforce Commission, Virginia Fox, Congresswoman Virginia Fox, North Carolina. Virginia?
Aren't there like a number of bills that are currently making their way through the House that are like crackdowns on this. Like they're going to go like the legislative angle. Does anyone have links to those?
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. Columbia University is in a free fall. Following the explosion of this anti-Semitism, the Education and Workforce Committee...
Have you ever heard conservatives invoke ethnic or religious or racial bigotry as much as they are right now? Like, man, they sure suddenly are concerned with all this.
...started investigating. So far, the committee has uncovered key failures in the administration's response to the anti-Semitic attacks and displays embroiling this campus. First, President Shafiq presented false testimony to the committee regarding... Does
anyone have any links to those bills?
Joseph Basad. No action was taken. In addition, the administration...
Oh, we saw this lady. She was on the TYT video earlier. She was the one who wouldn't tell us what she meant by unchristian behavior.
...has suspended 2 Jewish students for a made-up chemical attack. So I have a message...
Wait, made-up chemical attack. Is she referring to those... Wasn't it an Israeli who, like, pepper sprayed a bunch of students or something? Or the big... There's a wave of new bills to define anti-Semitism. I was thinking on a national level. Stink bombed? No, I'm talking about specific bills. Not just a general crackdown. Does it mention here? Yeah, I don't see the specific ones. This one breaks them down federally and locally. Would significantly increase the penalties for federal riot and incitement to riot offenses if they involve property damage or injury. Would create federal penalties for protesters who block public roads and highways. Make it a federal crime to in any way or degree purposely obstruct, delay, or affect commerce or the movement of any article or commodity in a commerce. Blah, 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 blah. Would prohibit deliberately delaying traffic. Riot offenses. These aren't the only ones. There are more than this. Measures using the same definition of anti-Semitism. It's the death of civilization, SDL. Here, Countering Anti-Semitism Act. Bipartisan pair of senators, I'm sure. Introduced legislation aimed at strengthening federal efforts to counter anti-Semitism. Under the legislation, the president would appoint a federal coordinator to oversee efforts to counter domestic anti-Semitism and create an interagency task force to coordinate with the implemented federal strategies. Okay. I don't know if this is necessarily because of the campus protests, because it was from 2 weeks ago.
President Shafiq, and a message for you all, too. The inmates are running the asylum.
That's right.
Take back control of this once great institution. You took action last week. It's time to act again. If not, the committee will pursue every possible avenue to create a safe learning environment for Jewish students. I yield back.
Just remember that whatever they say, like with regards to campus tensions and how it affects Jewish students, obviously anti-Semitism is always unacceptable. Just remember that in terms of having your life ruined right now, being pro-Palestine is the way you do that, okay? There are literally like politicians and journalists and news agencies that are all conspiring to lie about you and dox you. Like there are so many, like they target in on you for that. Yeah, your job opportunities, you know, all your information, like all of that, like going after you with militant discipline. And they're doing it deliberately, and they're doing it to protect the state.
Next is Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis from here in New York.
Welcome to New York City.
Yes, indeed.
Well, thank you very much for coming today. I'm so happy to welcome the Speaker to New York City, and we appreciate his leadership and coming here to condemn the anti-Semitism that has been allowed to fester on this campus. We just met with a group of students who told us that not only have they been bullied, but they've been, many of them, assaulted. They have been spat on. They have had to walk the halls of this campus to see swastikas painted. These are clear...
I saw a mention that one swastika had been painted in one of the bathrooms. Obviously, that's unacceptable, you know? Again, though, keep in mind that, like, judging from how counter-protesting stuff works, like, literally anyone can do that at any point. That doesn't delegitimize this or enable the crackdown on free speech that's happening at all. What they want to do is get you to look away from the larger picture, which is this is just the Vietnam War protests again, and focus on tiny little specific things to make you wheedle and go, oh, well, I guess that was bad, which I refuse to. They are bad, but that doesn't mean that they're like relevant matters of attention compared to everything else going on.
Examples of anti-Semitism, and it's shocking to see that it's happening in the most diverse and welcoming city in America. It is truly outrageous, and it's clear that the president of this university cannot control the campus. She cannot.
Also, given the fact that both college students and Jewish people tend to be left-leaning, the overwhelming majority of people involved in these protests who are Jewish are on the pro-Palestine side. You know? Like, without a doubt, 100%. Yeah. Like easy call. Yeah.
And will not hold students who are doing these types of anti-Semitic activities accountable, and that she cannot keep the students who are of Jewish faith, who have paid a lot of money and have worked very hard to get to an Ivy League institution like this, that she cannot keep them safe. And that is why I join my colleagues in calling for her resignation. Thank you.
Again, I like the implication that like just random people walking around are being clocked as Jews and attacked. Like, how do you tell if a person's Jewish? How exactly? Like, some of them wear the kippah, right? But how do you, like, broadly? Like, how do you tell if anyone's Christian or Jew? Like, how do you tell exactly? The implication being that people are just being, like, attacked randomly for being Jewish, as opposed to counter-protesters waving an Israeli genocide flags, you know, gleefully shouting in support of the continued genocide. Like maybe they get shouted at or whatever, but they won't say that. Just like how Eric Adams just obliquely referred to Jewish students being attacked or like having signs made fun of them or whatever, as opposed to people waving the Israeli flag.
Next, another congressman from New York, Anthony D'Esposito.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. If you are a protester on this campus and you are proud that you've been endorsed by Hamas, you are part of the problem.
Please cheer.
When you
they should have cheered.
Cheer on the fact that you enjoy Hamas and Hezbollah, you are yourself part of the problem. Mr. Speaker, I am proud to join with you here today in calling for the immediate resignation of the President of Colombia. She has failed her duty. She is not keeping students safe. And we see on this campus the hate-filled speech that is carrying through this country.
Yeah, does Hamas condemn you? That's a new one.
Another New York congressman, Mike Lawler.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for being here in New York. I want Palestinians to be free, too, from their oppressor, Hamas.
There we go. Got him.
And every single one of you students that support Hamas are an absolute abomination. It is shameful, shameful that you would support a terrorist organization that butchered and beheaded and burned innocent women, children.
First I'm hearing of this. Yeah, again, so we all see what they're doing, right? Like, again, these are politicians who are coming down here to essentially call all of these students anti-American, like you are enemies of the American people. That is the actual thing. The reason they're doing this is because there have been genuine efforts to get them arrested, to have the National Guard sent in and to arrest them on the grounds of national security, that they are terrorists, like actual terrorists, like Osama bin Laden terrorists. You know, that's the goal for a lot of them.
Children and babies. I went to Israel a month after the attack on October 7th, and I watched a 21-minute unedited video, raw footage of the attack. I watched exactly what Hamas did, and sadly here in America, we have students endorsing the butchering and brutality of a terrorist organization. If you want a ceasefire, the fastest way for a ceasefire to occur is for Hamas to surrender and to release the hostages. And if you can't call for that, you are a pathetic embarrassment to this institution and to students everywhere. It is time for President Shafiq to resign in disgrace. She has lost control of this campus. She has lost control of this institution.
Yeah, Israel has rejected like multiple peace deals. They don't give a f about the hostages, and they never have. This goes all the way up to the top, man. The ADL has been like compiling this big master list. Campus anti-Semitism surges amid encampments and related protests at Columbia and other U.S. colleges. And it's literally just, hey, we are the ADL. Look, it's published, the tags are extremism, terrorism, and bigotry. They really do want all of these students arrested as enemies of the state. McCarthyite shit, fully, yeah. This is just fascism, right? America's doing mask-off fascism, right? What is happening right now with these student protesters is objectively fascistic, yes. This is one, like, clear textbook, picture-perfect, obvious fascism, yes. 100%. I've gone through this, too, at least a shorter version of this, because it's been expanded since I last looked at it, because more stuff has happened. A lot of it is, like, obvious dishonesty. Most of it is just conflation of anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. And then there's a lot of, like, you know... Like, look at this. At the University of Michigan, where students began their encampment, protesters hung a banner next to their tents that read, "Long live the Intifada." Intifada is a reference to two historical periods in the late 80s and early 2000s during which Palestinian terrorists committed indiscriminate acts of violence against Israelis, including suicide bombings resulting in the deaths of more than 1,000 people. That's true. If you Google Intifada and look up in Wikipedia, that's all it'll say. It'll say Intifada is when the brown people did terrorism, and that's what the word means. And the only thing that it means to support Intifada is when you do terrorism, you know? This is from the ADL. Like, they know they're being dishonest. I'm Jewish, and when I was a student, I got a bunch of anti-Semitic hate mail when I wrote an article supporting Palestinian rights. Yeah, nobody gets anti-Semitism like a quote-unquote bad Jew, you know? Oh, yeah, wow, exactly, I said that before even opening the Imager article that you provided. Regarding your article, you are a self-hating Jew, if even a Jew at all. You should be ashamed of yourself. Yep, Incoherent. Many such cases. Looks like you have swilled on that Kool-Aid. I am not a huge Zionist, but your article was just a bunch of BS. Self-hating Jew. The cum of Allah has rotted your brain. Do you really have to swallow all of it? Israel does not deserve to be celebrated, Mr. Philip. Nonsense. Shame on you. May you merit to live in Gaza or Judea or Samaria as a non-Muslim.
Institution, and after listening to her comments inside, it is clear that she has no intention of getting this university under control and ensuring the safety and well-being of every student. That is what is entitled to students attending this institution. If the students are not safe, if the institution will not act, Congress has a responsibility to do so, and we will.
See, like, again, just objective, factual fascism. No ambiguity to it whatsoever. Completely straightforward. No two ways about it. You know, we, the government, the federal government, will intercede and crack down on these student anti-war protests.
I want to thank my colleagues for sharing their thoughts here. I want to say this as well. At the start of the American Revolution, the doors of this institution, once known as King's College...
Fetterman is going on an AIPAC-sponsored trip next month. Jesus Christ, how much money do you think he's getting from them on the back end? Oh my God. He's going on his birthright.
College were closed. When the war ended, the institution reopened and was renamed Columbia College. It was a shift from the tyranny of the monarchy to the freedom at the heart of the American experiment. And now the forces of hatred and oppression once again are on the march. They've begun to try to close Columbia's doors to a segment of students.
The monarchical forces of the anti-Israeli pro-Palestinian protesters, yes.
To every Jewish student listening to us, no matter where you are around the country, you have my word. The U.S. House of Representatives will do everything in our power to ensure that you are safe, you can freely practice your faith, and you can go to school, just like everybody else. We will punish those who have allowed this violence and bigotry to go unchecked.
Punish.
With that, I'll take a few questions.
Mr. Speaker, what about the anti-Zionist Jews in the...
What's happening on America's college campuses is horrific. Anti-Semitic mobs have taken over leading universities. They call for the annihilation of Israel. They attack Jewish students. They attack Jewish faculty. This is reminiscent of what happened in German universities in the 1930s.
That's so true. That's so fucking true. Thank you for your contribution to the discourse, Mr. Netanyahu. That's so true.
It's unconscionable. It has to be stopped. It has to be condemned, and condemned unequivocally. But that's not what happened. The response of several university presidents was shameful. Now, fortunately, state, local, federal officials, many of them have responded differently, but there has to be more. More has to be done. It has to be done not only because they attack Israel, that's bad enough. Not only because they want to kill Jews wherever they are, that's bad enough. It's also, when you listen to them, it's also because they say not only death to Israel, death to the Jews, but death to America. And this tells us that there's an anti-Semitic surge here that has terrible consequences. We see this exponential rise of anti-Semitism throughout America and throughout Western societies as Israel tries to defend itself against genocidal terrorists. Genocidal terrorists who hide behind civilians.
Guys, I'm not going to lie. It's so over. Even the White House, while every American has the right to peacefully protest, calls for violence and physical intimidation targeting Jewish students in the Jewish community are blatantly anti-Semitic, unconscionable, and dangerous. If only that happened. Separately, President Joe Biden also denounced quote-unquote blatant anti-Semitism on college campuses without directly referencing any one university. How do you win with these morons? They're not morons. This is a coordinated attack on free speech. Like, it's not, these aren't morons. Like, these are giggling fascists. All of them, including Netanyahu, fully aware of the fact they don't give a shit about Jewish people or anti-Semitism or freedom of speech, just using this as an excuse to crush anti-war protests. That's it. Like, that's it. Even the Dems are largely getting behind it.
We met briefly with the president and her top officials right before we came out on the steps here. We encouraged her to take immediate action and stamp this out. And our feeling is that they have not acted to restore order on the campus. This is dangerous. This is not free expression. This is not First Amendment. They are threatening, intimidating, saying that they will take violence upon Jewish students. We met with Jewish students.
Where?
Who are in fear. They can't come on campus. They can't study for their final exams. This affects everybody's lives, and it affects the image that we portray to the world. This is not who we are as Americans, and it's time to act like it.
Speaker, have you spoken to the president about bringing in the National Guard? A number of senators have done that. Are you urging the president to do that as well?
My intention is to call President Biden after we leave here and share with him what we have seen with our own two eyes and demand that he take action. There is executive authority that be appropriate. If this is not contained quickly, and if these threats and intimidation are not stopped, there is an appropriate time for the National Guard. We have to bring order.
And there it is. Yep, we're gonna do a Kent State. That's we're gonna do it. We're all over again. We're gonna do it all over again, boys. Go. History rhymes. Let's fucking go. Yeah, society was fun while it lasted, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, that's the goal. And by the way, all of the bullshit that you're hearing right now about how it's about danger on campus, about restoring order, that there have been threats, that there are anti-Americans, blah, blah, all of this was done with Kent State. Literally all of it. Like every single bit of it. No exceptions. It keeps happening over and over and over again. Jewish community threat watchers urge universities to, quote, restore calm and order, noting at least 20 significant protests are reportedly underway. SCN is closely monitoring safety and security conditions for potential escalation and impact to Jewish students and faculty/staff, the organization said, adding that threat watchers have tracked a record 516 threat incident and suspicious activity reports on campus in 2023. Okay. Schools must restore calm and order. The best way to do this is to enact and enforce strict anti-tent, anti-encampment policy and have zero tolerance for assaults on either students or police. As opposed to the current system where you can just assault people and be fine. Yeah. Texas governor, these protesters belong in jail. The crackdown at the University of Texas at Austin is happening right now, by the way. Remember when we saw all those cops lined up? Their governor is saying they all belong in jail. A bunch of arrests have been made. Picture from Austin, yeah. What starts here changes the world. USC closed. Yeah, protests right now at USC. They're actively breaking up Austin's campus entrances. Oh, they sure are militarized out here. all of this and across all of these protests, to my knowledge, we still don't have a single actual incident of like serious attack or injury. I could be wrong on that. I don't keep an eye on everything, but like it's so disproportionate, you know? It's not at all uncommon for big protests to have people to get injured. Like that does happen. That's not even reflective of the moral character of the protest. It's just a consequence of people getting rowdy. But there are people screaming for the National Guard to come in. Like, violence and injury is inevitable. It just seems like it's going to be the cops inflicting it. Yeah, I touched an Iron Zeppelin. I said they're based. But Vaush, there was a swastika drawn on a bathroom stall. Damn, that's crazy. Who cares? Like, literally, who cares? Can you imagine, like, this, literally, this would be, like, imagine this from the history books perspective, okay? What are your textbooks going to focus on? The protests? Or, like, imagine if it's like, oh, okay, so Martin Luther King Jr.'s civil rights protests were great and all, but did you know, like, there's this one guy at this one Atlanta rally who kept saying death to Whitey? That was pretty bad for the movement, huh? Like, that happened? Almost certainly. Does that get written in the history books? No, it doesn't. Here's a collection of anti-Semitic allegations. It doesn't matter. Stop. Don't engage. All they want you to do. This is all they want you to do. We are talking about a nationwide campus protest against a war that we are supporting. And like, trust me, if some really big bad shit happens that's genuinely anti-Semitic, that's reflective negatively of the character of the movement, you will hear about it. It will be big news. Everyone will want to report on it. Like, if you just want to go cataloging like an infinite list of random dipshit, like, oh, this one guy said this one thing in one camera clip from one, like, who cares? Like, genuinely, who cares?
Standing next to each other, and someone from the university instructed the NYPD to arrest us for trespassing, even though we were standing on our campus, not doing anything except exchanging ideas and opinions.
The occupation in Palestine is characterized by walls.
Okay, this is like a broader video. What is this?
Feel safe on campus because they are not.
Chud video?
Feet away. An individual comes, steals my Israeli flag. He moves.
Oh, holding Israeli flag.
Into the mob of anti-Israel, pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas protesters. And I try to get it back. They're pushing and shoving me, yelling at me, Zionist, kill Zionist. Two individuals throw a rock at me, hit me right in the face. I'm calling public safety, NYPD, where are you?
Okay.
I'm being surrounded by 100 people. They can do whatever they want to me in that moment.
We need President Shafiq to do 3 things.
That's it. That was the hard-hitting testimony. Look, 3 things. Number one,
we need NYPD.
Bring in the police. Or bring in the National Guard. Here's a video of one guy saying that like a rock hit him or something. Bring in the National Guard. Kill everyone. You know, Jesus Christ.
To these campuses, we cannot allow this to happen around the country. We are better than this. We are better than this, and I'll ask the president to do that, and I'll tell him that very same thing.
Speaker, what is the House going to do? So you've moved some things, you've done, what is your plan when you get back?
The House has been investigating a number of these campuses. There is a nexus to federal funding. If these campuses cannot get control of this problem, they do not deserve taxpayer dollars. That's a very serious...
No free speech, man. Fucking National Guard, crack down. No money for the university. Nothing. You will obey. Remember, okay? Universities are places for students to go and challenge themselves with new ideas, but God forbid students challenge other people with new ideas, like not supporting a genocide, you know? Sorry, Snowflake. You're going over there to learn accounting, all right? You're not going over there to have any kind of like divisive political opinions.
Serious issue. You've seen our Education and Workforce Committee having oversight hearings. We have brought the presidents of these universities to Congress to testify under oath, and you've seen accountability begun there. There'll be much more of that. We'll continue to work on legislation to...
Jesus Christ, look at all this. Jackboots.
Justice at the federal level. This Congress, and I genuinely believe there's bipartisan agreement on this, will stand for what is good and what is right. It does not matter who shouts in our faces. We're going to do what is right by America. We respect free speech. We respect diversity of ideas, but
we'll send the National Guard and take away your funding unless you stop with these protests. Yeah.
is a way to do that in a lawful manner, and that's not what this is.
Mr. Speaker, what do you want them? So there are students, some of the student organizers are part of a group called Jewish Voices for Peace. There are Jewish students who held a press conference yesterday saying that they face more anti-Semitic attacks from
Law enforcement have arrested a Fox 7 Austin photographer. Makes sense. Jackboots hate having cameras on them.
I'm not sure who the aggressors are, but I will tell you that any of that is inappropriate. It's lawlessness. It's chaos. That is not who we are. We believe in the rule of law. That is one of the foundational principles of America.
What law is being broken?
Maintained. The college campus used to be the place for respectful debate, for the differences of opinion and the free marketplace of ideas to be discussed. That is not what is
literally invoking like bullshit, empty free speech talking points while trying to take away the freedom of speech and crack down on the First Amendment protest. Like, shows you how empty all of these statements have always been. Absolutely meaningless from the get-go.
Here, you're intimidating and shouting down people you disagree with. You cannot censor and silence viewpoints you disagree with.
You are doing that. You are doing that. That is the exact thing you are doing. And by the way, under the First Amendment, you can shout down people. You are allowed to do that. The protesters there can do the things that you're saying they can't do, and you are doing the thing you're saying they're trying to do.
That is not American. You do not understand what it means to respect the First Amendment.
Anti-American. Yep.
What is your message to the students inside the encampment right now?
My message to the students inside the encampment is go back to class and stop the nonsense. Look, if we want to have a debate on campus about the merits of these things, let's do that. But you can't intimidate your fellow students and make them stay home from class. Think about that. Is that right?
Not happening.
Do you think that's right? Stop wasting your parents' money, Congressman Lawler says. I think that's right.
Mr. Speaker, what about the anti-Zionist Jews inside the camp that are celebrating Shabbat?
I don't know who's in that camp over there, but I would tell you that this is unacceptable, and the American people are demanding accountability for it. And that's why we made...
No answer. What about the fact that a bunch of Jews are on the pro-Palestinian side?
The trip here today, that's why this press conference is important. We want this administration and the administration of every university campus around the country to bring this to account and to bring this lawlessness to an end. And that's what we need to do. Thank you.
Well. Nice. That's great.
Overnight, Columbia University and student protesters agreed to extend a deadline for dismantling a pro-Palestinian encampment by 2 days. Our Omar Jimenez is on the Columbia campus this morning with the latest. Omar, good morning to you.
Hey, good morning, Casey. So yeah, those negotiations, there were two key moments where obviously the Columbia president set a midnight deadline for them to come to an agreement. Otherwise, they were going to have to find alternative options to dismantle the encampment. That deadline came and went. And then a university spokesman said within the few hours after that deadline that they actually did make some progress. And I want to tell you some of those negotiating tent poles, including dismantling and removing a significant number of tents inside on campus behind me, ensuring that those not affiliated with Columbia University will leave, that only university students participate in the protests, that they comply with all of the fire department's requirements with respect to activities and safety.
Wait, Vaush, this is old news. Columbia has backed off using the police. Is that true? Press release. Columbia University concedes to student demands, issuing written assurances of safety from state violence. We fear that Columbia is risking a second Jackson State or Kent State massacre. Is this confirmed? Is this confirmed? Columbia University concedes to student demands, issuing written assurances of safety from state violence. Where's the first party? At 4 a.m., Columbia University issued a written commitment to engage in further negotiations for at least 48 hours. Extended the arbitrary deadline multiple times overnight. Reinforces. Where's the actual release from Columbia University? Oh, here we go. Okay, this is really grim stuff, guys. Columbia says student protesters agreed to more talks and to remove some tents. Okay. So this is still before Speaker Mike Johnson showed up. I can't stand you people. The one I posted is from 30 minutes ago. Can you post it again? Just so I can make sure. Oh wait, gotcha. Yeah, I see it. Never mind. I'm stupid. I'm done. Small brain. SJP holds press conference, confirms university commitment to no New York City Police Department involved for the next 40 hours. Ah, no New York City Police Department involvement, but did we mention the National Guard? Ooh. Yeah, again, Thana said it perfectly. If you're against these protests, you'd be against any. Literally, f off. I genuinely don't give a shit. Okay, like you're some kind of moderate contrarian. But what if the swastika in the bathroom wall is bad? Yeah, no shit, it's bad. Go whine about the BLM protests. You are indistinguishable from like Tim Pool or Andy No or any other person who, during the BLM protests, made an entire career off of dragging attention away from the broader movement and towards individual acts of either alleged or actual violence. Like, you are doing exactly the same thing. You are a liberal, you are a pawn of the state, you are weak, you are limp. I do not respect you, okay? Whining about the rhetoric of like random student protesters. You know, go tell them that. Go. It says no National Guard in the first line. Well, son of a bitch. There goes my joke. How's the solidarity? So they have 48 hours, though it might get extended. Someone on Twitter unironically nailed it. Liberals oppose every war except for the current war and support every civil rights movement except the current civil rights movement. Yeah, it's very easy to fall into that. They're always historically correct, but they fail to see what's going on under their noses. Yeah, and the reason for that is because liberals are incredibly susceptible to arguments of civility. History books write about the big picture, which they agree with. But real life, day to day, when it's happening, means being bombarded by the opposition with nonstop propaganda about how actually it's bad this time and uncivil and poorly handled and so on and so forth, causing them to hem and haw and wheedle. But in retrospect, when all of those petty concerns fade away and the only thing people focus on is the big picture, they agree with it. I totally understand what you're saying and agree. Is the solution to not address at all anti-Semitic instances bad rhetoric? No. What do you mean address it? How can you address it? Are you there? Are you there scrubbing the swastika paint off the bathroom wall? Are you there correcting the rhetoric of the students? The real question is not what can you say, it's what can you do? And from a distance, materially, there are really only two things you can do, which is you can support them, you know, and you can support them in a fair and nuanced way, right? You can support them in like a substantive way while recognizing that not everything they do is going to be good. You can support them in a, I want to focus on the broader movement and not get bogged down by every shitty little detail that people henpeck disingenuously over, you know? You can support them in that way. Or you can say, well, I just don't think the supporters are appropriately addressing the na-na-na-na-na and effectively be a tool for the opposition. You know, exactly what they want you to be. It's ultimately your choice. Like, I've been doing this for 5 years now. It's not like during the Black Lives Matter protesters, I was ignorant of the fact that there were people who were doing arson. I literally made a video on this, right? Arson or rioting or vandalism or looting. And I could point to all of that and say, yeah, these things are bad, but they are also fairly inevitable products of the existent conditions. And the best way to address them is to address the broader conditions of the movement. You know, like what would it have made you if back in 2020 you or 2021 or whatever, you were like going like, well, you know, nobody's talking about, shouldn't we address the looting going on at the BLM protests? That would make you like Michael Tracy. You're now Michael Tracy, you know? So like you have to understand where you are and like proportion your attention appropriately. If we want to like appropriately proportion the great harm of the Zionist agenda and the genocide of Palestine and what have you against like the negative or bad optical things the protesters are doing, we would dedicate 10,000 years of condemnation towards Israel and 1 second of condemnation towards the protesters who speak poorly or who say something anti-Semitic or whatever, if you want to like proportion it to the actual harm being done. Likewise, I don't think that you should ignore if bad things are done or said, right? Like, you don't see me saying like, oh, well, I don't think that it's bad to be anti-Semitic or whatever. Obviously it is, and it does compromise the sort of credibility of the broader movement, you know? Like, obviously, if you were in one of these student protests, you should do everything in your power to make sure that everything is on message and that people who are anti-Semitic or hateful or whatever else are kicked out or otherwise ostracized. But in an environment where any random ass, like, like PSYOP motherfucker can go to a protest, hold out their phone, hit record, say, yo, I'm anti-Semitic, woo, end recording, and then post it online as, like, a new account, then retweet it from Maine and go, yo, someone said they're anti-Semitic and it's good at the protest. You know? Like, literally, if in an environment where that can be done, like, at any point, I feel like you have to be really, really, really careful about what you fall for. Do people honestly think a meaningful proportion of these college kids are actually anti-Semitic? I mean, I do know that the political coalition that's working to stop them seems to be at the moment most vocally led by the Speaker for the Republican House, and the Republican Party works with open neo-Nazis, so I don't know. I think what Ask Ben was just memeing, guys. The Mouse 7, why are you at, like, of what relevance is that? How could I know the mental state of the people chanting? I think it's a balancing act. There's not really much to balance here. I fully support the anti-war protests going on in these college campuses. Literally every protest ever has had, like, random dipshits in it or ill-considered slogans that people are chanting.